in halacha between the shtayim original ones and the shehin arba and the two added on ones. But in our case, but when the Mishnah says in Shavuos shtayim shehin arba by Shabbos, the way you're interpreting it is 2 out of 4 cases there'll be a chiyuv because the akira and the hanocha was done by the same person, and 2 of the cases there's no chiyuv because the akira was done by the balabayis and the hanocha was done by the money. So it's not a parallel case to the other cases in the Mishnah and Shavuos.
What's wrong with that?
Because the Gemara is assuming that all of the Shtayim Shein Arbas will be parallel cases, and the logic is that that's what the Mishnah is trying to do. The Mishnah and Shavuos is trying to sort of give us, in Shavuos we had a case of Shtayim Shein Arba, and then the Mishnah is trying to give us other examples of Shtayim Shein Arbas. So it's logical to assume that the other examples would be similar cases. What Tosfos asks is, the Gemara says that how do I know they're both chayiv? How does that make sense to say they should both be chayiv? Just like by Negoyim, where all 4 colors, the 2 and the 4, are all really Negoyim. But by Shavuot, it's not like that. So in fact, not all the cases are that way. So the kasha is not so simple. But Al Kolpam, the Gemara wants to say here that you seem to be saying that 2 of the cases of the Yitzir there's a chayiv, and 2 of the cases of the Yitzir there's going to be potter. Just like by Negoyim, all 4 colors we say are nega. Avacha nami kulu lechiyuva. The shtayim shein harba, both the 2 originals and the 2 additionals should also have a chiyuv. And the way we're interpreting the second 2 cases, there's no chiyuv. El Amar Papa, we have to retract our original teretz, and we have to have another teretz to our kasha. So let's review the kasha. The kasha is, why by us does it say shtayim shein arba b'fnim and shtayim shein arba b'chutz? And in Shavuos, when it lists off the same case, it just says shtayim shein arba, and it doesn't specify b'fnim and b'chutz. Alamar Papa, hacha de'ikar Shabbosu, since our Masechta, where we're discussing the main halachas of Shabbos, tani chiyuvi p'turei, it lists off all the possible cases of someone passing something from the inside to the outside, whether they're chayiv or potter. The Mishnah is providing us an exhaustive list of all the different cases, and then it also tells us which ones are chayiv and which ones are potter. But Hassam, when the Mishnah in Shavuos is just bringing down this halacha agavarcha, the lavikir Shabbosu, in Shavuos it's not discussing primarily Hilchos Shabbos, chiyuvei tani u'patur lo tani. It's only listing off the cases that would lead to a chiyuv chatas, rather, and not listing off cases that would not lead to a chiyuv chatas. So therefore, it doesn't list off b'fnim u'b'chutz. But the Gemara is going to drill down exactly what is it referring to. Mind you, what are the cases of chiyuv that the Mishnah in Shavuos would be referring to? Yitzios, because Yitzios are the main ones that are chayiv. Frek the Gemara, if that's the case, Yitzios tarti havyon. There's only 2 Yitzios. There's only 2 cases of chiyuv when we're passing it out. Either the Balabais is completely passing it out, or the Oni is completely passing it out. There's only 2 cases of chiyuv by Yitzir. There's only 2 cases of Gemara. Zoktumor, you're right, but it's referring to the Echnos as well. Shtayim doitzah u'shtayim da'achnosa. There's 4 cases where there'll be a chiyuv. 2 of them with passing an object from Rishus HaYochid to Rishus HaRabim, and 2 of those cases are when you're passing an object from Rishus HaRabim to Rishus HaYochid, because the Balabais can be passing something out, and the Balabais can be picking something from outside and bringing it in, and the Oni can be doing the same thing. So in fact, there are 4 cases of chiyuv. 2 of the cases are when something is being passed from Rishus HaYochid to Rishus HaRabim, and 2 of the cases are discussing when something's being passed from Rishus HaRabim to Rishus HaYochid. But Frek the Gemara, v'ha Yitzios katani. It doesn't say movements, it says Yitzios. So the Pashat Taich, or the word in the Mishnah, is that we're discussing not bringing something from Rishus HaRabim to Rishus HaYochid, we're only discussing cases of Rishus HaYochid to Rishus HaRabim. And it remains that there's only 2 cases of when you're passing something from Rishus HaYochid to Rishus HaRabim where there will be a chiyuv. So, Zok Gemara, Amar Vashi, not a problem. We're not going to be so strict about the translation of the word. Tana, our Tana of our Mishnah, Hachnasa Nami, Haitzok Harelei. bringing something from Rishus Harabim to Rishus HaYochid is also referred to as a Yitzia. Mimai, and you actually find that the Braisa does consider either way, whether it's going from the Rishus HaYochid to Rishus HaRabim, or from the Rishus HaRabim to Rishus HaYochid, it can be referred to as a Yitzia. Midetnan hamoitzi mirshus l'shus chayiv. Moitzi mirshus l'shus seems to discuss either direction, either from the Rishus HaYochid to the Rishus HaRabim, or vice versa. Milo yaskinon the kama ayil Rishus HaRabim l'shus HaYochid. The case would be inclusive as well of a case where it's going from Rishus HaRabim to Rishus HaYochid, which is technically a hachnasa v'kakari le'hitzah. Nevertheless, the Tana is referring to that as a hitzah. V'taimamai, and what's the logic behind referring to bringing an object from Rishus HaRabim into a Rishus HaYochid? What's the logic to call that a hitzah? Because kol akiris chayvetz mimakoymoi tana hitzah karli. Anytime you're moving a chayvetz from one domain to another domain, the Tana refers to that as hitzah. So therefore, it doesn't make a difference which direction the object is going in, it's always referred to as a hitzah. And therefore, we have four hitzahs that will be chayiv. Either the hitzah being from Rishus HaRabim to Rishus HaYochid, whether it's done by the Balbayis or by the Oni, or if it's going from Rishus HaYochid to Rishus HaRabim, whether it's done by the Balbayis or the Oni, and they're all called hitzah. Amar Ravina, Masnisa Namideka. I'm also going to prove from our Mishnah that the word hitzah can also refer to bringing something in from Rishus HaRabim to Rishus HaYochid. The Katani, right when we learned the Mishnah, I pointed out something unusual about the Mishnah. So let's actually turn back to the Mishnah and take a peek at what it says. It says, Yitzias HaShabbos, the Yitzios, so clearly we're talking about Yitzios, are Shtaim Shein Arba B'fnim, Shtaim Shein Arba B'chutz. What's the very first case the Mishnah discussed? Keita Da'ani. So remember, I asked at the point, if the first case of the Mishnah was Shtaim Shein Arba B'fnim, shouldn't it be talking about the Balabais first? Because the Balabais is talking, he's on the inside. Yet the Mishnah right away jumps to Ketzad Ha'ani Oimed B'chutz U'Balabais B'fnim. It actually starts off with the chutz. So let's see how our Gemara reacts to that. Omar Avinu Masnisa Namideka, the Ketani Yitzios. It starts off talking about Yitzios. The Kamafar Shachnos Alter, and the very first thing it discusses is someone who is passing something from the outside to the inside. So clearly you see from the Talmud's perspective, the word Yitzia could equally refer to bringing something from Rishus HaRabim into Rishus HaYochid, just as if it would be applying to something that started off in Rishus HaYochid and was transported to Rishus HaRabim. Shema Mina. So the first teretz, after all this back and forth, the first teretz of why the Mishnah in Shavuos did not elaborate on all the cases is because the Mishnah in Shavuos only listed off cases where there would be a chiyuv, which means the akira and the anacha was done by the same person. So the four cases that the Mishnah in Shavuos are referring to are two cases of Yitzia, where the Balabais did the Yitzia and he did both the akira and the anacha, or the Ani did the Yitzia, and again he did both the akira and the anacha. And the other two cases of chiyuv are hachnasa. It doesn't matter whether or not the Balabais did both the akira and the anacha, or the Oni did both the akira and the anacha. We have four cases of chiyuv. Shema Mina. Rava says he has a whole different shot. Rava Marishuyis Katani. The Gemara is, the Mishnah says Shtaim Shein Harba, it doesn't mean two cases and four cases. It means Rishuyis, there's two domains. There's a Rishus HaYochid and Rishus HaRabim. And when you analyze the two domains, there's four different cases that can come from these two domains. Rava Marishuyis Katani, Rishuyis Shabbos time. And that's how rational Tosha doesn't like that pshat, but that's the Pasha pshat. All the Mishnah is saying is there's two domains, and when you analyze the different scenarios that can occur in these two domains, it's going to split off into 8 cases. Shtaim Shein Arba B'fnim and Shtaim Shein Arba B'chutz. Okay, now we're getting into the nitty gritty. So
Now the nitty gritty starts.
yeah, it's getting. We're breaking it down into real detail. So again, I want to just break down the action. A simple action of Balabais picking something up in Rishus HaYochid and passing it out to Rishus HaRabim can be broken down into 3 components. He lifted it up, he made akira. He transfers it out, and then he puts it down. He made anacha. So it's really 3 things. And those 3 actions can all be done by different people. It's possible that one person did them all, which would be a chiyuv chatas. It's possible that you only did one of them, right? Or it's possible that you did even less than that. For instance, if I lifted it up, I passed it out, and I put it into the oni's hand, the oni accepted it. So he also did something. He did something that has no isser, but he's also doing something. So there's really four things happening. We're making an akira, there's a transportation, there's a hanacha, and then there's the person who got it. If I put it on the table down outside, it's one thing. But I put it on the hand outside, so there's he also sort of did something. He got something put into his hand. Right? So there's really four things happening here. Make sense? If we break it down to micro actions.
Is the thought of what the balabas wanted to do count as the action? It's not enough. He wanted to pick it up. He didn't have in mind to do something else because you didn't meleches machshavas.
What did he actually do?
He thought about doing something else, and he ends up picking it up. He wanted to.
Oh, so that's a different shaila of misasik. If I was trying to slap a finger across the face, and in the middle I hit the cup of coffee, so it flew out from Rosh Hashanah.
Right.
Yeah, that's. I don't think that's chayiv. No, I wasn't trying to slap his face. You hit that.
What I'm saying here, because this is what he wanted to do, is that machshava that's what he wanted to do count as something as part of the process?
You need to have a Shabbos. Right. I don't know if it's an action, but doing something inadvertently, I don't think will be chayiv. Okay, so now let's break it down into more components. And here's where it gets a little bit detailed. Omer of Masnal Abaye, Hatabne Havin, you're saying there's only 8 cases? Tartis Rehavin, there's really 12 cases. And now we're starting to break things down into a smaller action. So let's see Rashi, second last Rashi on the bottom, how he breaks it, these micro actions into 12 things. Arba Chiyuve, there's 4 cases of Chiyuv, right? That's what we listed off. When there's 2 etzos, either the balabais is doing the full etzah, or they're only doing the full etzah. And there's 2 achnosis, whether the balabais is doing the full job, or they're only doing the full job. So those are the 4 base cases. Then you have Tamna Ture. You have 8 cases where there will be a ptur. Shtei akiras la'ani b'lay hanacha. 2 cases where the ani lifted it up, but did not make hanacha. Ushtei hanachas b'lay akira. And then there's 2 places where the ani did the hanach without akira, meaning the balabais picked something up, passed it outside, and then the ani took it out of the balabais' hand. So there you have a case of hanachas. The chen lebalabais. The same thing if you're looking at these cases from the perspective of the balabais. If the ani lifted something up from Rosh Hashanah, passed it in to the Rosh Hashanah, and then the noto balabais misoicha, and the balabais removed the chayfetz from the hand of the ani, harei akira la'ani. That's a case where the ani made the akira, va'anocha labalabais, and the balabais made anocha. Or if the ani stuck his hand in to Rosh Hashanah empty, and the balabais made an akira and put something into the ani's hand, v'hoitzi, and then he took it out, there's a case of akira labalabais, v'hanocha la'ani, v'chein poshet balabais k'dekatoni. So when you break it down, the 4 cases of chiyuv, there's really 4 cases of chiyuv and 8 cases of ptur, because the 4 cases of ptur that we discussed, when one was making the kir, one was making the hanacha, there's 2 actions involved. There's the action of the balabais, and there's the action of the ani. Come to chois, it's going to really break out into 8 additional actions, because in each case there's 2 actions. There's the balabais making the akira and the ani making the anacha, or vice versa. So in fact, we're going to have 12 cases once we break it down into the mini actions. Once you're getting down into such detail and you're breaking up each transport into its individual components, shitzer having, you're actually going to end up not with 12, but with an additional 4 of 16. And what are the additional 4? The additional 4 is in the first case, where the ani or the balabais made both the akira and the anacha, they still have to put it down into someone's hand. So let's take the first case, where the ani picked something up from Rosh Hashanah, and he put it into Rosh Hashanah, and then he put it into the balabais' hand. There the ani is chayiv, because he did both the akira and the anacha. But there's a balabais there who's potter, right? And the Mishnah actually specifically says, if you look at it, the first case, it says potter. So you see the Tana is considering that in action, just the fact that it was put into my hand, that's something that the Tana addresses and says that it's potter. So if you really break it down into all the micro actions, you're going to have 16 cases here. So it's never mind and it's not Shtaim Shein Arba, but it's Shtaim Shein 12, it's Shtaim Shein 16. So we're totally off. So that doesn't bother us. Why? It doesn't list off the 4 cases of Tur where either the Onion or the Balbais did nothing at all. We're not going to count as part of our list of actions a case where someone did something. Not only is he potter, it's actually mutter lechatchila to do, because you're really not doing anything at all. Those aren't going to be in our list. We're only listing something above the seifa, the potter of a losser. The only potters that are relevant to us in our list is in a case where it's potter of a losser. So, for instance, if I only did an akira or I only did a hanacha, on potter I don't have to bring a chatos. It's not an issue deraisa, but you're not allowed to do that lechatchila. And the reason is very simple. If you do the akira only or the hanacha only, we're afraid you might do both the akira and the hanacha. So that's also midrabanan. So again, bava dereisha potter mutar lekatani, ala bava deseiva the potter of a losser. So to kasha mi ika b'chula Shabbos potter mutar. There's a rule. There's generally a rule that whenever in Hilchos Shabbos, the Mishnah, the Gemara, or even the Rambam says, the very first halacha in the Rambam of Hilchos Shabbos, the Rambam says, whenever it says potter, it means potter of a losser. It means you're potter from bringing chatas, but it's also midrabanan to do. So do you ever find in Hilchos Shabbos where it says potter and it's really mutter? So back in our Mishnah, where it said in the first 2 cases that the person who just received it is potter, that shouldn't mean mutter. That should mean osir. Because we know there are no cases where it says potter in Hilchos Shabbos, and it means that it's completely mutter. V'amar Shmuel, kol pertura de Shabbos, any time in Hilchos Shabbos, anyone tells us that something's potter, it's aval osir. It's always osir to do. Bar mehanitlas, there's only 3 exceptions to this rule where it's potter and mutter, to potter and mutter, and those are at Seidas Tzvi. And that case is if there's a deer in a pen and someone parks himself right in front of the gate. So now the deer cannot get out. So that's chayiv. He's chayiv mishum tzedek. He just trapped a deer. What if someone comes up right behind him and stands there? He did nothing at all. Well, what if the first guy leaves? So now, technically, I've trapped a deer. That's potter. That's potter or mutter, because I didn't trap the deer. It was trapped before I got there. The fact that he left doesn't have an impact. So that's one case where it's potter or mutter. Then there's teidas nachash, and that's because it's a malacha shein shricha legufa. Someone captures a snake not because he wants the snake skin. This is a person who's capturing the snake because he's posing a danger to people. There's a snake roaming around. It's posing a danger. So he traps the snake so that it can't hurt anybody. A malacha shein shricha legufa will be potter or mutter. And mapas mursa. Mapas Moshe brings back very good memories because Litvishes sometimes slur their samach. So Revelli, when the Ksubas, the Revelli always talk about Mapas Moshe. I'm making Mapas Moshe. Mapas Moshe means to bust a pus pimple. So when you're teenagers and your yeshiva is talking about busting pus pimples, it gets very exciting. What? So busting a pus pimple, if you're only doing it to get the pus out, so then again it's a malacha shein shricha legufa, because a Pesach, you're making a Pesach, you're making an opening. And if you're making an opening so that air can get in and start healing it, that would be usher. But if you're just busting the pimple to get the pus out, that's not called making a Pesach, and that's also mutter. Zok Gemara. So since whenever it says in the Mishnah potter, it means potter aval usher, you can't tell me that we're not listing off those cases because it has to be usher. Zok Gemara ki itrich le Shmuel peturi de ka'avid ma'isa. The only cases the reason why Shmuel, really our Mishnah is also potter and mutter. Shmuel said that every time it says potter, it means potter aval osir. No, Shmuel speaking about something else. Shmuel speaking about a case the avid ma'isa. Shmuel p'turei is the avid ma'isa. When did Shmuel say that wherever it says in Hilchos Shabbos potter, it means potter aval osir? That's if he's doing something. But if he's doing nothing at all, like in our case where I'm just holding my hand out and someone's putting something into my hand, Paturi, the loikavid ma'isa, ikatuva. There's many examples in Hilchos Shabbos where it says potter on something where the person didn't do anything at all, and that would be potter and mutter. So going back to our Mishnah, in the first set of cases where either the Oni did both the Akira and the Anocha, or the Balabayit did both the Akira and the Anocha, and the other party, the Tana labels as being potter, that's pater umuter. So those wouldn't be counted. So that's why it's not 16, it's down to 12. But we still have 12 cases because the second set of cases we're splitting into two. The Akira is one case and the Nocha is the other case. You still have 12. Why does it say Shtayim Shein Arba B'fnim and B'chutz, which would be a total of 8? So tomorrow I'll tell you why. Because Peturi da Asa Behu L'Dechi of Chatas Chachashuv. A Ptur that can lead to a Chi of Chatas, that's something that we're listing off as a matter of significance. But the Lo Asa Behu L'Dechi of Chatas, a case where you're Potter and it cannot lead to a Chatas, Lo Chashuv. It wouldn't list that off. What does that mean? If I did, Rashi learns in this first shot, if I did the Hakira, if I lifted up the Chayfetz, that could lead to a Chi of Chatas, because if I continue my action and I eventually put it down, I'll have a Chi of Chatas. But if I only did the Hanocha, it's impossible that could lead to a Chi of Chatas, because it's the end of the route, it's the end of the line. So therefore, it knocks off 4, and now we're down to 8 again. So Zok Gemara, let's just read the words again in the Gemara. That's what it lists. The Gemara, a whole new question. It says Shnei Peturin. If one person did the Akira and the other person did the Nocha, we say they're both Potter. Potter Avalosser. The Gemara, why? At the end of the day, between the two of them, they completed the Malacha. And Tosfos says the kasha can't be that the first guy who made the Akira should be chayiv because he didn't complete an action. But at least the second guy should be chayiv. And let's see Tosfos inside. Shnei Peturin v'asavida malacha mi benayu. Zok Tosfos enekoya masnisen. It's not referring to our Mishnah. Shari Reisha the Shnei Peturin. The Reisha our Mishnah of the case of Shnei Peturin. Tanu pasha the ani es yodi lefnim. Kaboy lekamon. The Gemara over there challenges it. So this is not what our Gemara here is referring to. Ella koya mai de ka'amar peturi de asebehu de chiyav chatas kachashuv. Al chatas les behu al shnei peturin. In the case where one person did akir, one person did anocha, that chiyav will not come to chiyav chatas. They're both potter. And the Gemara asks, "V'amai v'savida malachim ibinayu." Between these two people, between the person who did the akira and the person who did the anocha, a malacha was completed. And here Tosfos has the key line: "V'lei parich she'is chayiv harishon." The Gemara is not suggesting that the person who only did the akira should be chayiv. The ain't svara dal yidei hasheni she'as ha'anocha v'gomer hamalacha yitz chayiv harishon. I didn't do anything wrong. I just made an akira because you went and completed the malacha, so that should cause me a problem? I never did a malacha. You're the one who completed it. Ella asheni kaporach. The kasha of the Gemara is on the second fellow. Sheyischayev lefishal yodei nigmor hamalacha. So the real kasha is there's a malacha in progress. You took it and completed it. You should be chayev for that.
I don't understand something. One of the 8 cases, 2 of the 8 cases are where they're completely potter, right? That we mentioned in the Mishnah. 4 of the cases.
Well, are you referring to the cases where I made neither an akira nor an anacha?
Right.
I was just a place where the object was placed at that.
I only made 1.
Oh, so you're talking about the second half, where I made either the akira without anacha or the anacha without the akira.
So
Okay.
those are cases of Petur, the loy ba'as l'dei chiyuv chatzos. And the Mishnah still counts it. We eliminated the 12.
So let me clarify it. If I made only the anacha, why would that be a Petur? That's also the chatas.
Loyas l'dei.
It's loyas. So those are not listed.
So those are not listed. So that's why we didn't say the 12.
Correct.
But of the 8 that we do list, there are 4 of them that are potter.
Correct. The
So
4
loyas
cases.
l'dei chiyuv chatzos.
No, also the chatas doesn't mean lemaise didn't come to a chatas. It means it's an action that can't possibly lead to a chatas. So the Mishnah is only listing things that are potter that were the beginning of a malacha, that had you continued it, it would have led to a chiyuv chatas. That's what the Mishnah is saying. Of course it's potter. If it's potter, of course it's lo yasel chiyuv chatas.
Right.
It's potter. By definition, potter means it's a chatas.
Right.
Potter from a chatas. The lo yasel chiyuv chatas means it's an action that couldn't possibly lead to a chiyuv chatas. So if you're finishing off the malacha, that cannot possibly lead to, you can't by mistake do more.
So 2 out of the 4 cases that are potter, we're talking about the second part of the mice.
Those are not listed in the 12. In the 12, we're only listing the 4 cases
The 8.
that.
The 8, right? 8.
There's 8, but the Gemara was asking it should be 12. So the Gemara said we're not gonna count
Those
the
4.
4 hanachas. We're only counting the 4 akiras. Because the akira is the beginning of a malacha, that if I wouldn't have passed it off to the second guy, I would have put it down myself, I would have been chayav chatas. So lo yachid chayav chatas doesn't mean, in this case, based on what happened, I'm chayav chatas. Of course I'm not chayav chatas, I only made the akira. It's talking about when I started to do what I did, and I made my akira, had I continued and I made the anacha, it would have led to a chatas. So that's something that's more serious. It's more serious to engage in an action that if you don't stop, you'll be chayav chatas, rather than engaging in an action, no matter what you do, it can't come to
What are
this.
the 4 akiras?
The 4 akiras were either if the balabayis picked up the chayfetz in Rishus HaYochid and put it into the Oni's hand, and then the Oni pulled it out and put it down. That's one akira. The second akira,
He couldn't have picked it up in the Rishus Yachid.
yeah, the balabayis picked up the chayfetz in the Rishus HaYochid and put it into the Oni's hand.
Oni's
When the
hand.
balabayis picked it up, he's starting an action
so that's
that if he would put it out, he would have been chayav chatas.
Okay.
But he didn't. He put it into the Oni's hand. That's case number 1,
Right.
the balabayis did akira. The second case with the balabayis did akira was he picked it up and he did a transport, but he didn't make tanoch.
Right.
The Oni took it out of his hand. And then there's 2 parallel cases in the opposite direction where the Oni did it. So there's 4 cases where one person did the akira. Now, in all those 4 cases where one person did akira, there's actually someone who did the hanocha. So it's those 4 hanachas that we're ignoring because the person who did the hanocha could not have possibly come to a chiyuv chatas. And then as soon as we finish that part of the Gemara spins it around on its head and said, no, the guys doing the hanocha are worse. They should actually be chayv chatas, the Gemara is asking now, because they finished off a malacha. Right? And that's how Tosfos explains. Tosfos said, why are the people who only did the hanocha, they actually finished off a complete action. They finished off this act of hoitzah or this act of achnosa. So why indeed are they not chayiv? They did the end of the malacha. It's like first past the post. Doesn't make difference how it got up to the point where the malacha was about to be nigmar. They pushed it over the finish line. They should be chayiv. On that the Gemara says,
When it reaches in, it takes it from the bias that did the
well, what's the specific case you're referring to?
you just said if he completed the action,
Now, like once you go through that, once you actually do it, it makes more sense. Now, that the Gemara says there's a chiddush by Shabbos. Tanya Rebbe Omer me'am ha'aretz ba'asoisa. So this is a pasuk really taken out of context. So let's see the pasuk inside. It says v'm nefesh achas techta b'shkaga. If someone doesn't have b'shagig, me'am ha'aretz from the people of the land ba'asoisa achas mitzvos Hashem. When he does one of the mitzvahs of Hashem. Now, if you read this pasuk pshat, the basoisa seems to be talking about the person that did the avera. In doing one of the mitzvahs Hashem, asher lo yisayasena, that he was not allowed to do v'ashem. And Tosfos tells us that the Gemara is going to dash in the basoisa, not referring to the person that did the action, rather the basoisa is talking about the action itself. So that's not pshat, as David Zalti would say, it's drash. We're dashing the pasuk to teach us to extract Allah out of it. So me'am ha'aretz ba'asoisa ha'oisa kula v'lo ha'oisas miktsasa. Halacha number 1 that we're going to extract from this pasuk is you're only chayiv if you do the entire malacha and not if you do half the malacha. And the second thing that we learn from this pasuk is ba'asoisa yachid v'asa oisa chayiv. If one person does the entire malacha from beginning until end, only then he's chayiv. But if it's a malacha that was split in half and it was done through 2 people, it will be potter. So your kasha, from a logistical perspective, from a logic perspective, is a good kasha. The fellow who pushed the malacha over the finish line, he should really be responsible for the whole malacha and he should be chayiv. But since there's a pasuk that specifically says that you're only chayiv if you do the whole malacha, but if the malacha is done through 2 separate people, you're potter. That explains why, in our case, he's potter. Itmar nami, we have another proof to this halacha that it cannot be done through 2 people, 1 person has to do it. Omar B'chir Bar Gamda, Nizruka Mipi Chabura. Unanimously, it was agreed from the discussion in the Beis Medrash. For Ramun, they said, Ba'asoisa, and that means, from there we learn, is Yachid Sha'asa Chayiv, Shnayim Sasua Pturin. And Tosfos asks right away on this, Itmonami, Tosh ask, I don't understand. We brought a Mishnah to prove our point, and then we're reinforcing it with a member from Amiroim? That doesn't make any sense. Zok Tosh Vestema, the Maisi Siaita, Mishmaitza Labraisa, we're bringing a raya from a discussion of Amiroim to a Tana? Ubeper Kami the Kedushin Parich, Yehuda Va'od Lakra. If you have a pasuk, and then Rabbi Yehuda said the same thing as the pasuk, are you going to bring Rabbi Yehuda as a raya to the pasuk? V'yeshlemer the Nizr Krami Picha Bura Deka Amar